Welcome to our brand new branch, Marvel with Metatron. I am your Cychadelic Cychopomp, Chase Clarence Calloway, and you are tapping into the root of the symmetry so you can tune in to the mind of Mercury. And by tuning in to the mind of Mercury, you are gaining access to all the information that Masonic banks and evil religious empires have stolen from indigenous individuals like myself and my soul group, so you can actually see the world in a more clear way. Now, this is information that the Masonic banks have not only stolen from the Library of Alexandria, which they burned down, but libraries all across the ancient world. The whole ancient world was connected. Egypt was the epicenter for connecting all these empires in America, all these empires in Africa, empires in Europe, empires in Asia, empires throughout the whole world. So burning down the libraries was the global reset for humans overall. Burning down the libraries is how we got Jesus getting sacrificed to the government, and now we live underneath this new time structure where, as of recording, it is 2022. This is why I have to share the Hermetic truths. I have to. It's my soul, life, spiritual, everything journey. I have to share the Hermetic truths that these world governments have stolen from Egypt and stolen from Mesoamerica so that they can enslave you and make money out of making you fearful of death and making you feel like you need to work your way into another heaven. I, as a spirit that created Hermeticism, am letting you know that you create your own heaven by being happy alone. And as long as you know how to consistently create based on how you alchemize your thoughts from nothing into something, this is where you build your own empires. You make your own imagination real. You don't have to feel scared and trapped by someone else's system based on how they're telling you that you're of sin, telling you that you're not good enough, and telling you that you need to serve them. This is all perception being projection, projection being perception. Any religion that's telling you that you're of sin is secretly way more evil than you can even imagine. So this is why that religion almost certainly has stolen Hermeticism, because they're weaponizing astrology against you instead of teaching you how to use astrology for yourself. Luckily, from my experience in all of life in the universe, the truth is more relatable than a lie. So the whole point of symmetry is to naturally, as I just expressed my indigenous individuality, expose the truths and thus expose the lies that have twisted the truths of how Masons have built their whole new world, have manifested their whole matrix by stealing all of Metatron's ideas and weaponizing this Native American, this Egyptian, this Mesoamerican, this Babylonian, just in general, this indigenous wisdom against you. Instead of you knowing that you are indigenous because you create your own life from the inside out, and thus you are individual in your perspective on the universe. You're not created by someone else's idea. The fact that you're aware of your own thoughts and feelings means that you created your own soul, and your soul dictates how you connect with ideas outside of yourself. But you are always your own creator before you can even create the opportunity to feel like you were created by someone else. Here's a perfect example. Me growing up as a child, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I grew up in the United States. I grew up a Christian. So I, as an indigenous man, was taught that I was black, and I grew up a Christian. And as a Christian, as a child, I was taught constantly that the Bible was literally written by God himself. So I was consistently and repeatedly taught throughout my childhood, throughout the most impressionable years of my life, that this book, which was used to enslave my ancestors, was written by God himself. Thus, that means that it's better than all other books, and you need to ignore all other books. The Bible is the only good book in existence because it was written by the only good spirit in existence. The spirit that created everyone that we're supposed to see and everything that we're supposed to interact with, including you and all of your individuality. Christians needed me to believe that this text was written out of pure space by the one and infinite man who is using all of us to talk to himself. Because the whole point of Christianity is teaching me that I am not me. I'm not an individual. I don't have my own space. I don't have my own heaven. I was created by someone that I have to learn through these Masons is better than me. So now they can do whatever they want to with me, do whatever they want to with my energy, because they're using me to build a bigger world. That's the whole idea of slavery. I was forced to absorb and uphold this lie like my entire childhood. And it was only once I started getting older, developing my own mind, right? Got into the teenage rebellious years, started to go against my old beliefs, started to separate a little more, started to challenge the norm, that I became more anchored in the fact that God could not have just popped this text out of existence. God would have had to have worked through real human men, living, breathing humans in general, women, anyone, but humans in general, a living, breathing creature. God would have to use this creature to scribe out the word in a language that was already a matrix on its own. So that language is the matrix. So in general, for someone to say that a book was written by God itself when it wasn't even authored in that language, it was translated by people, and we can historically see that all these Masons and all these Christians have been translating different versions of the Bible. You can't say that it was written by God himself at all. So that was a lie I was forced to uphold. But guess what? Once I started getting wiser to it in high school, church started changing their tune a little bit. Church decided to start saying, oh, you know, God didn't really pop it out of thin air. That's the whole point of prophets. That's the whole point of the messengers of God. And anyone can be a messenger of God. So it's like, well, you were teaching me that the Bible was literally written by the one and supreme infinite knowledge of nothingness that is controlling all of us, seen and unseen. Now you're going to tell me that, oh, but there's multiple people, but God moved through all these people. It's like, so you're telling me God possessed these people? Well, God can't possess his own creations, and you're a creation of God. So if you can listen to God, then you're a prophet of God. Well, look, this is Clarence Calloway being a prophet of God. I'm just an individual. I'm the space that built Mercury so that we could even get astrology popping way before religions and way before government started stealing my ideas to make money. So considering the church has consistently lied to push its colonial narrative and to make slavery profitable for itself, I just want to point out the two types of Christians at this point, because there's really the emotional feminine Christian who literally believes that God manifested the Bible out of nothing, and thus God would never let the Bible be changed by people or never let the Bible be altered. And the Bible is the one and only true word. We need to only look at this book and ignore all indigenous individuals throughout existence. All the ones that built the systems that the Bible is stealing from, ignore them. All the ones that built the exact nature that this Bible is eating and causing climate change inside of, ignore them. We're here to eat. And it's okay to do all the sins you want because Jesus is your superhero. Jesus saved you from yourself, so you can be as evil as you want. As long as you worship Jesus as your one and true connection to God, you're going to be able to sacrifice yourself to some other structure and go to someone else's simulation. And this is where misery needs company, right? So you're just going to be very unhappy with a bunch of unhappy people, and you're about to quickly find out that heaven and hell are the same place when you're thinking that you can be happy outside of yourself. The moment someone can convince you that you're going to be in heaven by connecting with something outside of yourself, I promise that's going to be hell. But the fact that you want to go there shows that you would rather be in someone else's space than your own. So that's basic spirituality. Again, way before any religion colonizes your idea of Zoroastrianism or Hermeticism. So let's get this straight, okay? A feminine emotional Christian will just straight up believe that the Bible was written out of pure nothingness and God is literally one man in control of everything. Anything you can look at was created by one man, and he's using you, and you to talk to himself. So this is where anyone who believes that is just in full projection mode. And then, of course, there's not the emotional feminine Christians who believe that everything's being controlled and consumed by one man that created everything so that he can play with himself and fight himself and talk to himself. There are the masculine logical Christians who will admit, okay, well, God couldn't have just made it out of thin air. He would have had to work through messengers. He would have had to work through multiple men and humans, because that's why God made humans. So then it's really about people spreading the word of God together. Okay, cool. So either way, whichever Christian you are, whether you believe that the Bible was written out of pure nothingness or it was written by real people, you worship Enoch. You worship the true messenger of God, Metatron, whether you know it or not. Just in case you didn't know, for any Christians or Jews or religious people listening at all, religious people who are here, Enoch is the grandfather of Judaism and Christianity. And Judaism and Christianity openly document and openly confirm that Enoch is the one man who literally did not die. And CymaTree, I'm letting you know that it's because he fasted. So he fasted so long and he connected with his space in such a high degree. He raised his vibration at such a high frequency that he connected back with Mercury. So they're colonizing Mercury, connecting with itself. And they're stealing these ideas so that they can make money. But this was the way that Mercury authored these religions into existence. So this is how Jews and Christians worship Metatron. They worship Enoch as the grandfather of their religion, because Enoch literally fasted, raised his vibration, turned it into Metatron, and then that was Mercury becoming the messenger of astrology, the messenger of himself, but leveling up, because it's a psychedelic way in which you level up. So that was a demonstration of how you, as an individual, anyone, can create a body inside of a realm, live a life, and then when they feel like going back to their space, take their body with them. And that would be you ascending into your individual heaven, into your own God. Okay, and then that would literally be you collecting your own information, and you would literally be on some Mercury shit, because now you're actually holding on to your past lives, and you're able to do way higher dimensional things, way better. It's higher levels of communication. Okay, I'm giving you these keys. So any Christian that consciously worships Jesus as the one and only superhero, subconsciously worships Metatron as the one and only true divine messenger of God. So now it's my job, as a space that created Metatron, to tell you that you are a child of God. Jesus is a child of God. I am a child of God. But we are all individual childs of gods, because we are all children of our own gods. See, everyone's idea of God is completely and infinitely individual to their own space. So the fact that you are aware of your own perspective means that you are an infinitely individual God before you decided to create a structure that allows you to feel like you are a human or a demon or something that is lower than being an ultimate and supreme creator. The point of being an ultimate and supreme creator is that that's fully unrelatable energy. So that's like fire energy. So when you're living existence right now, you're living more in the air and earth realm, where you are choosing to make compromises based on contracts of how you're going to connect and communicate in a more grounded and practical way. So this is where humans who don't know that they were God before choosing to be born into existence will then get lost in all the demonic angers of life, all the demonic problems of life, all the war and Martian energy. That's why Marvel is Marsville. Marvel is all about weaponizing this demonic Martian energy and stealing all this indigenous spirituality so that they can make it work against you. Basically, they can make you work for them, make it work against you, and make you worship the idea of being able to save yourself from your own sins. But they're the ones who taught you that you have sins in the first place. So this is twisted. This is why CymaTree is here, to use his triple C to cut up all these demons, and then we can see how space connects space. Metatron wants you to know that everyone is an infinitely individual space before they use their God power to create a consciousness that allows them to connect and communicate with spaces outside of themselves. This is how we then create structures, create bodies that allow our individual feelings about our imaginations to relate with each other. This is how the cells in your body are literally functioning so that your heartbeat can give them life and you can be aware of what I'm saying right now. Thus, consciousness itself is proof that God exists, because God, the spirit that's creating its space into a structure, created consciousness so it can exist as a body. So if you are consciously aware of your thoughts and feelings, that means that your God is the space which created your structure. And considering you are the space that is observing your structure, this is where you have to realize that you are God before you made the compromise of sacrificing your imagination on the cross so that you could live a more physical, grounded reality where you're at the whim of spaces outside of yourself. That's what it means to be in hell. You're in hell right now. This is the deepest in hell you're going to get, because being in hell is literally being at the whim of spirits outside of yourself. So being in hell is literally being in this body, because these are a bunch of spirits outside of myself creating this structure that I have to trust them. Like, I have to work with the spirits inside of my body. I have to work with all my organs so that I can communicate with you right now. If my tongue didn't feel like moving, if my nervous system didn't feel like firing, we would have a problem, wouldn't we? This is why it's important to water fast, okay? People have so many health problems because they have all these chemicals messing up their nervous system and messing up their body's ability to communicate. So look, that is the way to superhero life, and it's right there with Jesus, okay? So they took Jesus from Zoroaster, all right? Straight up. They took everything with Jesus straight from Zoroaster. And the whole point of Jesus is to make you believe that you, as a spiritual individual, should sacrifice yourself to the same structure that he sacrificed himself to. So this is why everyone has an infinitely, completely individual and unique idea about who God is, because that reflects your idea about yourself. Because you are experiencing and being aware of your own thoughts and feelings, you are the individual, unique God that you are trying to connect with and trying to get other people to connect with. So once you realize that you are infinitely individual and unique, you're on the road to superpowers, spiritual superpowers, relatable superpowers. Everything's a superpower. Everything's a superpower. But this is the way that you're going to actually be able to do what Jesus did, which again, this is what he was teaching, because they just took Zoroaster's teachings and then taught you that you should sacrifice yourself to the people who are causing climate change and doing child trafficking and building their empires out of slavery. You are God because you were alone in your own space before you chose to connect with others. So you have to be God by default before someone else could even use language to convince you that you're not God. Because the moment you believe that you're not God, you're literally just going to become a demon who's supporting someone else's idea of God. Because the only reason you would believe you're not God is that you believe in someone else's idea of God. Otherwise, you're just living an artist's life. You're just being a natural creator. And you're not even thinking about it in terms of God, but that's what God is. God is literally a space creating a structure so that it can be consciously aware of how it wants to connect with other spaces. This is why you're an individual God. I'm an individual God. A fly outside is an individual God. A dog in the apartment next to me is an individual God. All these animals, all these critters and organisms that are leveling up through life, we're constantly evolving. We're constantly being psychedelic in how we connect with ourselves and then others, connect with ourselves and then others. We are all individual gods. Everyone is a creator of their own circumstance, and we are all co-creators of the universe. So with the knowledge I just shared with you, you should be able to see how you are an individual God. I am an individual God. Jesus represents an individual God. Anubis is an individual God. Everyone is an individual God because every single space is alone in their infinitely individual imagination before they decide to compromise and choose to connect with spaces outside of themselves by creating relatable structures that limit their imagination. But you can still observe how infinite your imagination is. So the fact that you can imagine things that no one else can see means that you are the creator of light. But if you don't connect with your imagination and consistently make it real, that light's not really going to matter to anyone but you. So if you want to make your light matter to us, this is why you make art. This is why you make a heart. The heart is the center of the human experience. And the only way all of our individual ideas of God can relate is if we choose to connect with the same human experience. By choosing to connect with the same human experience, we can now relate our infinitely individual feelings into similar circumstances. And once all of us as individuals are going through the same circumstances, we can now build relationships with each other. And this is how we use earth to relate our water together. This is how we use the body to relate our souls together. Once we're all conscious of the same human experience, we can now use the light that we're clinging onto to bring life to languages and communicate with each other in an ever more conscious fashion, which then leads us to being able to manipulate the nature around us so that we can create religions and governments and advanced technology that allows us to live a more comfortable lifestyle inside the atmosphere that we find ourselves breathing in. Metatron wants you to know that not only are you both God and the Son of God, but that the whole idea of a spiritual superhero was authored into this realm by Zarathustra Trismegistus, the prophet of Ahura Mazda. It's really important for you to know that both the Bible and Marvel Comics were created by cannibalistic Masons who stole all of their spiritual ideas from Zoroastrianism, Hermeticism, and really all the creations that came out of the mind of Mercury, because they went to weaponize everything related with astrology to trap you in the matrix. Stole it from Metatron. They know that nature is a matrix that you're already lost in, but if they want to make money off of your nature, then they need to trap you in a denser metallic matrix. And that's the whole point of the Bible and Marvel Comics working together to colonize your idea of what a spiritual superhero actually is, when Zarathustra Trismegistus clearly authored it in a way that was not causing climate change, and it actually supported your growth. And historically, just to drive this point home for us, both Jesus and Superman are documented as being directly inspired, directly created from the inspiration of Zoroastrian ideas and principles. So Masons burned down the Library of Alexandria, stole all of Mercury's Zoroastrian Hermetic wisdom from indigenous peoples, and then weaponized Metatron's teachings in a way that is meant to colonize the world. And they did this by creating their right-brained superhero known as Jesus Christ, the true Son of God, and then their scientific left-brained superhero, Clark Kent, the true son of Krypton. So one is the true son of God, and the other one is the true son of an alien. Both Jesus and Superman are meant to embody the idea of all possibilities. That's what God is, all possibilities. And really that's space. Your space is all possibilities. The moment you imagine something, that's your ego. So this is why really God is the ego, because the moment a spirit imagines itself, that's an expression of its ego. So all possibilities is really your spirit, and then your imagination, which is the expression of your version of all possibilities, is your individual God. So Jesus and Superman both embody the idea of all possibilities. The Masons who created these ideas are very publicly documented on universal record as stealing or being inspired by everything that they saw inside of Zarathustra's teachings, inside of Zoroastrianism, inside of the mind of Mercury, the prophet of Ahura Mazda. So both Jesus and Superman, as prophets of God in some way, shape, or form, are ideas that are directly documented as being taken from Zarathustra, the prophet of Ahura Mazda. Of course, Superman is DC, not Marvel, just to be clear. The point is that Masons covered religion by creating the superhero of Jesus, and then covered science by creating the superhero of Superman. So as CymaTree, I'm on a mission from Mercury right now. My mission is multifaceted, but to put it concisely, Chase was called away from his hermetic heaven to voluntarily suffer at the hands of this Masonic hell, so that I could create this circumstance where I can communicate with you about the actual spiritual and astrological truth of how your space creates structures, how superheroes imagine themselves to become real, and how all of us create the circumstance where we can even connect inside of nature and vibe with each other in the first place. The point is, I'm teaching you how gods create life. Of course, as an individual spirit, as an individual space, I can only speak from my own perspective and my family's, because they trust me like that. That's why I'm here. CymaTree is created to be the champion of nature, because he's a champion of all the invisible indigenous individuals who are imagining the reality that all these humans are consuming right now, it's really important that I keep fasting like I have been for years, so that I can continuously raise my vibration to a higher frequency and stay close to my space, and I can continue to more consciously communicate from my mind in a way that doesn't have me drowning in my emotions like it seems most people in the realm are. This is where they got the idea of Jesus walking on water. It's from Zoroaster, Tehuti, or Hermes. In general, it's a Mercurian idea that Masons have weaponized and sold to you in the form of Jesus. And walking on water doesn't literally mean that you are the only son of God if you can walk on water. It represents how your mind, through fasting, can be at such a high vibrational frequency that you're able to be in the air instead of feeling like you're drowning in the water that everyone else is connected with. So then this is where we start to get the idea of flying, because your mind is always flying. But if your body can match the true frequency of your mind, this is where you can be like a Dragon Ball Z character and just fly all the time. So as Chase, the newest messenger of Mercury, I have access to all the information that Metatron and Anubis have amassed in their interdimensional civilizations that most people just have the words to label as Mercury and Atlantis. It's way bigger than that. The point of me creating CymaTree is to communicate with you about how everything is way bigger than it seems. The spirit realm is infinitely large. But let's just use the words Atlantis and Mercury right now. So Atlantis has so much information that the government has stolen, and Mercury has so much information that the government has stolen. And it's my purpose as CymaTree to restore balance by dissecting the lies and sharing the truths. So it's pretty exciting, because that means that my family has worked through the simulation to place me into the perfect space where I can cut up all these light supremacist lies that monotheistic Masons have sold using the truths that they stole from Hermeticism, Zoroastrianism, and overall the indigenous wisdom that comes out of Mercury and the spirits that help create astrology. Really, to put it concisely, I was sent here to decolonize what your idea of indigenous spirituality truly is. This is why I have created Marvel with Metatron. We're going to decode, decolonize, and dissect all the ways in which these monotheistic Masons have used Marvel to DC to the Holy Bible to colonize not only your idea of spirituality, but also your idea of what it actually means to be a superhero. As we continue along this series, we'll be able to see more clearly how the monotheistic Masons that make money selling you lies have made their deception relatable by weaponizing the truths that they've stolen from Hermeticism, Zoroastrianism, Odinism, Tehutism, Quetzalcoatlism, and just Mercurianism, all the messengers of Mercury, just everything that they could from indigenous individuals so that they could make this great reset possible. Once you realize that you, as God, created yourself to be the child of God, this is where you can see how superpowers are really just about you as a spirit communicating your infinitely individual imagination through this finite and thus relatable and grounded structure. And then that's where, based on where your imagination is, how infinite it is, you're going to have different kinds of superpowers. Because really, it's all just you communicating in different fashions. So as Chase, this is why I've created CymaTree, to demonstrate how communication is the ultimate superpower. Because everything in existence is created by spirits communicating their infinite imaginations into finite realities. Thus, communication is the ultimate superpower in all realms. If you as an individual can communicate about your imagination, then slowly but surely it will trickle down and become a reality. It will go from being invisible light to visible light. This is how all religions are created. This is how all governments are spread. This is how all history is made. This is how all laws are written. People believe that the Bible is a history book, when really it's an imagination book. Now, are there accounts in the Bible that actually happened in real life because spirits had an imagination and then communicated those imaginations into reality? Yes, absolutely. Are there also stories where it was created by someone literally having an imagination and then using words to just make that real, but they never actually made it real through their muscles or their mind or through a community? So it was never actually connected upon and thus not really in the universe. Absolutely. One is historical documentation. The other one is fiction that's sold as historical documentation. So really the Bible is created by stitching together things that did happen and programming, desires, made up stories that are meant to make you believe that you need to sacrifice yourself to the people who are weaponizing your idea of history because they're writing this Bible and making you learn their language and then teaching you that Jesus loves you more than you love yourself. So you should sacrifice yourself to him because he also sacrificed himself to the government. And it's really just these cannibals behind closed doors eating the body of Christ, eating all the children of God. That's you. Once you can see how the Bible itself was created by men who wanted to be seen as the May sun. I'm born May 16th. They wanted to be seen as the messenger of Mercury, Zoroaster. They wanted to be seen as a Mason because they want to be the Taurus. They want to be the matrix that you connect to because that's how they gain stability. That's the idea of heaven and why Masons, always causing messes and Masons love to cause messes, but it's because they're trying to bring heaven to earth. And they're obsessed with how Zoroaster, the prophet of Ahura Mazda, brought heaven to earth as Hermes, as a messenger of Mercury, as Tehuti, as Odin, by creating astrology and creating this symmetry, creating structures that allow other spirits to connect. Because that's what heaven is. Ultimately, it's a structure that allows you to connect with yourself. Because true heaven, hermetically, is you being alone. Hell is always going to be you connecting with other people. Everything is backwards down here because these Masons truly hate to be alone in their own space. So they're constantly going to project at you that heaven is when misery loves company and everyone's miserable together, not you love to be alone. And because you love to be alone, now you can connect with whoever else you want to connect with and love to be alone. And that's the ultimate superpower. That's literally going to be the highest vibration possible for all superpowers, because the moment you want to connect with someone else, you're limiting your superpower, which is your imagination. So if you have to connect with someone else by them teaching you that you're not a god, you have no power because God is power. So now you've just given them all your power. And this is why Masons are obsessed with using the Bible to weaponize everything that they stole from Hermeticism, Zoroastrianism, and all of these other systems that Mercury has implemented to teach you not to be happy alone, but to hate being alone. Now you can see why the Bible has been used to rationalize and justify the genocide of indigenous peoples throughout all of North, South, and Central America. Masons view indigenous peoples as the children of God, and they worship the idea of sacrificing children of God to the government and eating the body of Christ for salvation. That's fundamentally what they believe. So when they're creating all these governments, they're practicing horrible cannibalism behind closed doors because they're openly telling you that that's what they do. So they're just letting you know that this is what they do. This is how they like to relate. This is why they use money to consume the world and cause climate change, because they're cannibals. So now I, as Chase, have created CymaTree to continuously do what I've been doing for eons upon eons, which is use my spiritual trippy tripsy communication abilities to build structures that support your space instead of hindering it. This is why everything that I build ever in any lifetime is for your ascension. It's for your liberation. It's not for your slavery. It's not to make you feel lesser than. It's not to bring you down. Everything that I build is already a low vibration because we're already stepping down from being space. So if I build anything, I'm going to be reminding you as Chase that you are space. And you shouldn't get lost in whatever light you're using to connect with other people. Just be aware that you're creating light so you can communicate with other people, and you'll have a much better life overall. So I hope that this brand new branch of Mercury brings some spiritual symmetry and beautiful balance to how you view ancient astrology and modern religion. If you would like to learn way more, if you would like to level up and become your own subconscious superhero by water fasting to connect with your own God and heal all of your own health problems, if you want all the tools that I have cultivated from years of doing this for myself, then visit chaseyourgenes.com and get tough with us today. Until then, stay awesome, stay beautiful, much love, yeah.